Hi, my name's Anna Serin, and I'm Director of Listings Development with the Canadian Securities Exchange. You're joining us for yet another market recap here on Friday, February 11th. I'm, of course, joined by my co-host, Bruce Campbell with Stonecastle Investment Management. Thank you for joining me, Bruce.
Yeah, good to be here, Anna.
Nice to be here. It's a gorgeous Friday. We've got Super Bowl Sunday coming and Valentine's Day on Monday. So happy Super Bowl Valentine's Day.
Thanks, you too.
Okay, let's talk about what's going on in the markets. It's been a crazy start to the year. We're going to talk yet again about inflation. It is at a 40-year high. Then we're going to talk about Bullard in a China shop. That's right, not bull in a China shop, but Bullard in a China shop. You'll tell us what that is. We'll talk about some market volatility that we've been seeing. And then, of course, we'll get into some CSE issuer news. So let's start off by talking about inflation yet again, 40-year high. Now, from what I read, it was up, it's estimated 7.5%, which is a huge number. What's going on?
Yeah, so we were anticipating this number to come out, and there was some talk about whether or not inflation was going to slow or not. It didn't. We saw a 40-year high. We saw, as you mentioned, 7.5% year-over-year growth, which is a tremendous amount of inflation. Central banks don't want that to continue, and so there's going to be a real concerted effort on their part to try to reduce that. I think that there's probably you're probably going to already see it start to decrease a bit, especially on a year-over-year basis, because the comparables from a year ago, if you look at March, April, and May, were extremely high, and so it'll be hard to meet those numbers. So you probably start to see that peel off even before the Fed makes their moves. And right now, most people are anticipating that they're going to make a move in the March meeting, and so we'll actually see that CPI number for February come out just before that March meeting.
Well, and then on that note, we're going to talk about Bullard in a China shop. So I had to look this up. So Bullard in a China shop, it was coined, I believe, in 2021. And it refers to the Federal Reserve official James Bullard. He became the proverbial bull in a China shop when he claimed rates would go up in late 2022 instead of 2023. So is that what we're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, he came out and spoke on Thursday. And when he spoke, the market was before he spoke, the market was up. And then he came out and said that he felt that rates needed to be up by a full percentage point before the end of the year. And that caused the market to reverse. It was just a little bit premature for what the market wasn't expecting. They thought it would be a little bit more gradual approach. And with that data, we've really seen the expectation of what the Fed's going to do, even in their March meeting, really change. So right now, I think it's about 65% of the people who are voting are saying that they think that the Federal Reserve will increase interest rates by at least 50 basis points. Before, it was thought to be only 25. And if you go back a month ago, that number was about 6%. So most people are leaning towards, or the market's leaning towards, a 50 basis point rate hike in March. There's some concern that possibly they even hike earlier. There's a meeting on Monday, and there's been lots of chatter online about this meeting because it's the kind of the wording that they've used makes it sound like it's extraordinary and that it's something that is emergency meeting. It's not the case. They have these meetings once a month. Whether or not we see some changes from them, we'll have to see. But it's it's something that's been on the docket, and they'll come out and they may or may not change interest rates. The concern by the market is that they're going to, but they may not as well. It might just wait until the March meeting.
And we've talked about this before, but let's just reiterate it. When they talk about rates going up, that's not necessarily great for the equity side of the market. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it becomes more difficult from a equity valuation standpoint, from a comparable standpoint for companies. There's a lot of companies that borrow money, and if now their rates go up, it means more borrowing costs for them, which potentially cuts into their levels of profit. At the same time, investors who have money to deploy are always looking for the highest yielding alternatives. And if that's equities or if that's, fixed income, they're going to take a look and say, what am I going to get in each of those markets? And what's the trade-off between risk and security and yield and security? And so when rates are going up, that means that their alternatives are getting, higher yielding than they were in the past. And there's lots of other ramifications to higher rates. One of them is the fact that, you see valuations, and most analysts have some type of model where they use interest rates as a factor in that model. And so as rates go up, it pushes the valuation down. And so that's what you've seen in some of the US large cap, and technology sectors, is that valuation's been now pulled back to where it was in, say, 2017, 2018, from where it was a record just a couple of weeks ago.
So what's happening with market volatility?
Yeah, so I mean, what we really saw was after Bullard spoke, the market was up on the day and sold off quite dramatically during the day. So that market volatility is, in this case, really factored around the Fed and what is potentially happening there. There's some people thinking that, the Fed has a very good ability to jawbone, where they just talk the market in a certain direction that they want it to head. And there's certainly some chatter out there that that's exactly what they're doing. In this case, we'll probably need more data to actually know. Like I said, the comparables for inflation in March, April, and May are quite high from 2021. So when those numbers come through this year, the annual rate of inflation might actually be lower than what a lot of people are expecting, because of the fact that those comparables are so high.
And is this something you think we'll see play out for the near term?
I think it's going to be probably a bigger theme throughout this year. And, there's always emerging themes, but this will be one of the ones that's kind of in the background for investors. And if the Fed does continue to hike rates, the market can only take so many hikes before it really starts to have an impact.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to get into some CSE issuer news. We're going to talk about cannabis this week. We've had also an interesting year in the cannabis space, and there's obviously a lot going on across the border. So what are some of the cannabis moves that we're seeing right now?
Well, the big thing is that, just in this week alone, when we've seen this now for there's 5 previous times. This is now the 6th, where the Safe Banking Act in the US has been included into another bill, and it's passed the House, but it now is sitting in the Senate's hands. And as a result, you've seen the cannabis stocks, especially the US cannabis stocks, have quite a significant move over the last week, from really a bottom on, I believe it was the 3rd, to earlier today. They made quite a nice move. Now they've sold off a bit here in today's trading session. They started higher and have sold off, and we haven't really been able to confirm what's happening there with any type of news. If there's something that's happened from a legislative standpoint that it's been completely quashed, or if it's just the rumors or concern of the market over this Ukrainian-Russian confrontation.
So I was reading up on this. So just to kind of go back, we've talked about this a lot, but so the act that went through, or that's gone through the Senate, was the America Competes Act, which is the America Creating Opportunities to Meaningfully Promote Excellence in Technology, Education, and Science. That's quite the act. And the Safe Banking Act gets lumped in with this. And as you mentioned, I think it's been lumped in and taken out. Is it 6 times now?
This will be the 6th, yes.
The 6th time. So it keeps kind of getting rejected and not going all the way through. And just to remind our viewers about the SAFE Act, that is to allow, these cannabis companies to utilize the banking system to run their operations, correct?
Yeah, they would have full access to the banking system, whereas right now it's quite limited.
Right. And that's pretty important. I mean, these cannabis companies in the US are so massive, some of them, that using the banking system is fairly important. And they say this will be kind of the gateway to federal legalization. So it'll be interesting to see if that goes through. I did read somewhere, and this is the Pew Research Center, the survey data showed 91% of US adults are in favor of legalization. You feel like it's just got to happen at some point, but it's just been pulled back so many times. It's so hard to tell what's going to happen. Do you have any views on that?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's politicians being, playing the politics game is what's happened here. If you kind of look at the demographics of most of the politicians in the US, they tend to be older when they grew up in the era when, it was just say no to drugs and all that. And so they're slow to act, even though their constituents are really in favor of this. And like you said, it's not a function of when, or not a function of if it'll happen, but really when. So, the genie's kind of out of the bottle here at this point in time. and it could be, 2 months, or it could be, 5 years, but it will happen at some point in time in the future, especially when you look at how many states are actually legalized marijuana now from a medical or recreational standpoint.
Absolutely. There's a lot of hope with Biden coming in that would change quicker than it has. But, the world is a lot different than we expected it to be. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. On that note, talking about CSE issuer news, Harborside Group, which is one of CSE's, I think, one of our original US cannabis issuers. They actually listed with us in 2018, in March of 2018, which in the world of cannabis in the capital markets, Bruce, I mean, that feels like decades ago, doesn't it?
Forever, yeah.
So they've been with us for a long time. Their co-founder, or one of their co-founders, was Steve D'Angelo. And there's actually a wonderful interview I did with him on the Cannabis Investor Series, which you can find on CSE TV. It is a fantastic interview. If anyone wants to learn more about it, go check it out. They just closed the first tranche of an equity group debt of $45 million. And they have another $35 million here or there that they can access whenever they want. And it's going towards a bunch of consolidation that they're doing. It's going towards debt and working capital. They have a bunch of stuff that they're working on. So congratulations to them. It's so great to see them continue to grow and flourish. Look, Bruce, with everything going on in the cannabis space, we've seen a bunch of these really big financings, whether it's debt or equity. So it seems like they still have the capability of going out there to raise this capital. Are you seeing that slow down?
It's certainly slowed down from some perspective, but the high quality companies have still access to capital. You've seen quite a few private placements done with some of the big MSOs, US MSOs, and you've seen several debt deals, and the coupon rate on the debt deals continues to drop.
Wonderful. Well, listen, on that note, what should we think about going into next week?
Well, there's a few things to watch. One is coming up at noon Pacific, or 3 p.m. Eastern today, the Fed will be announcing what they're going to be doing with their bond buying program. There's some speculation that they might cut that bond buying or might be reducing it more. So that'll be something that'll have an impact on the market next week. It'll probably have an impact today as well. And then the second thing is, seems like things are heating up with Russia, Ukraine as we speak. The markets have had, a fairly sharp drop intraday. And so there's some anticipation of what's going to happen there. Oil spiked up, gold spiked up. So, we'll kind of see what the weekend brings and what next week has in store.
Wonderful. Well, listen, thank you again, Bruce. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, you too.
We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good.